Hi, I'm Lars. Welcome back to the channel. This video is about how to demo a deck. There's a lot of videos out there about how to build a deck, and they have very short things in them about, tearing down a deck. But there's a pretty good process that you need to go through to demo a deck. Why are we taking our deck down? We're going to put a concrete patio in, which will be a couple videos after about how to prep it and how to actually put the patio in. Why would you want to demo a deck? Well, if you have an existing deck that needs to be removed and you're going to have somebody else build it, they're going to charge you to demo that deck, and that could be between $5,000 and $10,000. So if you want to keep that money in your pocket, you want to get a little bit of a workout, and this is going to be a workout, and it does take some strength to get this done. So it is a lot of work. I'm not going to lie to anybody about it. Keep on watching the video and learn how to do this. So right now, let's get to it. Alright, so if you're pulling boards off a post or anything, you find where the nails are, and then what I recommend is using flat pry bars. Don't put your pry bar in like this and hammer it in and think you're going to pop this out. The better way to do this is to put your pry bar in like this and pull down, and then that'll start breaking these things free a lot easier, and you have a less chance of splitting the wood, because when you're pulling like this, you're pulling on the grain of the wood, and you'll get in between it and you'll literally rip a piece down. When you're going like this, you're taking this edge and it's going perpendicular to the grain like this, so you're kind of pushing all the grain at once, so a big portion of it. And then just kind of break it free a little bit. You don't need to pull this completely out, just a little bit on each side, and then you do the other side same way. Like that, and just kind of work it out a little bit at a time, and eventually this thing will just come right off the wall. Now I need to get a ladder because I am not the tallest person in the world. I need to get a ladder, get to the top, and then we'll pull it off the bottom. Like I said, you just keep on just pushing it a little bit at a time, and it will come off. And once you get these tapped out far enough, sometimes you can pop back the wood and get enough of the nail and pull the nail out. And that's what our goal is to do. But it doesn't always help. Sometimes they just move with the wood. Now sometimes you need something that's called what we call a cat's claw. Some guys I know call it a camel toe because it kind of looks like a bull hoof, or the way their feet are, goat toes or whatever. But the guys in the trades that I was at call this a cat's claw. And what you do with it is it's made to be brought in at an angle and just tapped a little bit to get under the nail, and like a cat's claw can get in and pull that out. That's why they call it a cat's claw. Then you can take your hammer and just pull it right out of there. Okay, so something you always want to do if you're doing demolition or taking stuff down and you're going to have to put it back up. Notice here at the top, we've kind of designated that that's going to be post 0, post 1, post 2, this is post 3. So we've marked post 3 up here. And then on the board, we marked this is the top of post 3 and on the north side. So each post will have a north side, south side, east side, and west side. So we put these back up, we won't have any problem making sure that they fit properly. So it's an early morning. Got to continue on the demolition. As you can see, all of the trim work is off, all the doors, the back corners, all the posts have been cleared off, and you guys will see a timeline kind of thing of the pictures as we're going through this. The next step is to get the screws out of the deck. So one of the worst jobs doing demolition is taking out screws. And yeah, we are going to take the screws out. I know they've got board breakers and stuff like that, but to be honest with you, these screws are actually in pretty good condition, and the amount of time it would use trying to pull these boards with a board breaker is going to actually be a lot more work. Undoing the screws is something everyone's got to do when you're doing demolition. So at this point in time, all the trim work has been taken down, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but right up here is a barn swallow's nest. Now, barn swallows are great birds. They eat 10,000 mosquitoes a day, all kinds of varieties of bugs and stuff, so we don't mind them coming in, and we actually build little ledges for so they can build their nest on. Alright, so this is the beginning of day 3. So we have the bridge going out to for the dogs. They're all quarantined off. Something very important that you need to think about if you do have animals. When you start taking a deck down, there's exits that they can get out of your yard. A lot of the boards are off on this side. As you can see, there's still a lot of boards down. And the reason for that is because these are screws that could not come out. So there's a lot of, not all the screws, but there's like screws here and there that we just couldn't get out. We got to take them out with a sawzall. But what I want to do today, this morning, is I want to go over the anatomy of a deck. The underlying structure for any deck is a beam. A beam is made up of 6x6s or 4x4 posts, and then on either side of them you need to put a 2x whatever, 2x8, 2x10, 2x12 to span the distance that you need to go. In between those two boards you can put bridges. The joist system sits on top of the beam, and it can also be attached to a wall using a ledger board. Joist systems are made up of rim joists, usually a ledger board in the back and a bunch of joists in the middle, and you always want to put bridges in between each joist. When the beam and the joist system go together, this is what it will look like. Let's go look at the real thing. So we're going to get down into this thing a little bit. Now, the anatomy of a deck, this back board here is called a ledger board, and that's where your joist hangers are going to hang. Now, some people will call this one here also a ledger board, and it's not. It's called a rim joist. Alright, these in the middle are all joists that are going this way, and these are called bridging. Alright, this big monster down here at the bottom is a beam. That's this guy right here that everything is setting on. And these little guys are called hurricane straps. Now, typically hurricane straps are used on houses to keep the roof from blowing off with an updraft from a wind. That's whether for a hurricane. People also use them on decks to tie them to their beams. Now, if someone tells you you do not need a beam under your deck, don't let them build you a deck. This board on the outside here, going here, that's also called a rim joist. And that's pretty much the anatomy of a deck and how they work. Of course, these are posts. These posts don't have anything to do with the deck, but they are supporting the beam. If you had a pier at the bottom, that would be a good thing if you are supporting something with a lot of weight. The way that I put posts in for my railing, here's a really good example, is like this. So I put a bridge across, put my post in, and then I put this guy on. Now, what does that do besides just screwing them to the outside? Well, here's one that has it on it, okay? And you can see this thing here is not going to move anywhere. So if you like to lean on a railing or whatever, don't buy the cheap posts and just stick them on the outside. They look nice, but they will not last. They'll break off pretty quickly. This is really the only way I have found to keep the post in place. Okay, so it's just a couple bridging boards, and it'll hold it forever. In fact, every time that I ever build a deck, that's what I do. Everybody's happy with them later on. So we're going to get back to this today, really soon. Here's my dog. A deck is made up of a bunch of different systems, okay? But the basic systems are, you've got a beam, that's this big behemoth thing down here, and these guys are joists. And then you have some bridges, and then the board on the back here is a ledger board, and the boards on the front, these two and this one out here, I'll call rim joists, okay? Because they're the rim, the edge of the joist system. For our deck, these are 2x8s, and this is a 2x12. Now 2x8 allows you to span 8 feet in between supports. The beam down here is our support, the ledger is our support, and there's another beam over here that holds our support. Being that this is 14 feet, we've got plenty of support here that we need. Out here, same deal. This board's 8 feet long. There's a beam of probably about 7 foot. Now, the span of the 12 foot, the reason these are 2x12s, there's 12 feet between here and there. So if you take the width of the board and you just switch inches to feet, that's how far you can span. So very good rule of thumb. If you have rim joists and you need to butt them up like this, and I highly recommend this instead of having just one rim joist, use something called a carriage bolt to bolt them together. Just drill a hole through it, tap them in, and get them tight. Do not use a lag bolt, right? Something like this. These are made for different purposes. So this is what I'm talking about. Here's your carriage bolt, and here's the button on the other side. So you can pound those through the hole very easily. This one here, you wouldn't use a hole, all right? You would just pull it in. You could drill a pilot hole for it. Yeah, it's all good. But this, as you notice, has a bunch of threads here, an area that has no threads. You can get these smaller, but guess what? When they get smaller, the diameter gets smaller. So you need to have more of these, probably 2 in each hole, although 2 in each bay. Like I said, I'm not a big proponent of this, because if these ever do loosen up, you can only tighten them so much. These guys here, I could probably pull that carriage bolt all the way through that wood if I wanted to, or tighten them up as tight as I want. And you will have to tighten them up. Wood, when you put it in, I guarantee is going to be wet, and it's going to shrink, and you're going to have to go back and tighten them up. All right. These are called joist hangers. These are what you hang your joist on your ledger board with. These are not used on the other side. On the other side of the deck, you have your rim joist, and here is where you don't need joist hangers. And the main reason is because you've got access to just put screws or nails. I would put ring shank nails if you're using them, but screws into the end of your joist, and this here will hold this rim joist up. The next thing you need to look at is hurricane straps. And yeah, these things are a little bit pricey, but you don't need to do them every other one. We did, but you don't need to unless you're like in Florida or something like that. But they're called hurricane straps. And you can just put 3 little Simpson nails in here on each side, and this will make sure this is staying in place. Now, the nice thing about the hurricane straps, you're not doing a lot of damage to your joist. And when you get to the center, I would put them every 3rd or 4th bay, just to make sure if you have to strap something together on a beam. But what they do is they prevent the deck from hopping up and down. Because what's going to happen over time, and a lot of people are going to tell me, you could just toenail a nail into each side. And this is true. But this board and this board are going to dry out. And when they dry out, those nails or screws are going to become loose. And then you're going to get a hop and a bounce in your deck. Personally, I don't like climbing underneath tight spaces, so hurricane straps are totally in the budget for me. These things, when we put them in, I think they were probably like 69 cents a piece. Now they're probably about $1 unless you buy them in bulk, but 100% worth it, okay? All right, so whenever you're doing whenever you're doing demolition, you will probably come up across a hurricane strap. The easiest way I found to get these out is with a cat claw. So we call a cat claw. And on the top part of this, put it in between the head nail and the actual hurricane strap and tap it a couple times so you get underneath it, and just pry it up, and then you'll do the other one the same way. If you can get it in there. Okay, this might take a couple hits. These things really don't need to be in that tight, but sometimes they do get put in tight. Then just grab a little bit bigger crowbar, not something that'll fit in between your joists, and pull these nails out. And that right there is the hardest part of getting these out. Because from this point you can take this crowbar and use the little V here and straddle that nail, pry it back a little bit, get the next side, the other side in. And then pull that nail out some, tap back the hurricane strap, now for the bottom side, you've got a pretty much straight shot, so you can use this longer edge and straddle that top nail and pry that out, and then go down the side and get the bottom one. And as you can see, they'll start coming out pretty quick. You just don't have that angle from the other on the other side of the hurricane strap. Then it's just trying to get these galvanized nails out of the lumber. And that's all there is to taking them out. Okay, so the reason I'm doing this video is to teach people about what it's like to do demolition. There's a lot of things that people see on the internet, they see on TV shows. Hey, we're going to do the demolition first, and they zip through that like that because they think that everyone wants to see something being built, and that's true. Everybody likes to see something new being built, but a lot of the things with demolition, it's not just going in and destroying everything. Okay, sometimes you might want to keep like the joist from this deck, like we do. We want to keep the joist. So you got to be a little bit more particular in just going through and taking a skill saw or a circular saw, whatever you want to call it, or sawzall, and just cutting up all the wood and throwing it in a pile or a big old dumpster. We don't have a dumpster here, okay? I'm not throwing away 99% of this stuff. We've got carriage bolts that we're going to be collecting, and that's the point where I'm going to make right now in this little video. Is it's sorting all the pieces that you've just kind of thrown around. I like to emphasize that a clean shop is a safe shop, and that is no joke, and it's no different than a work site. If you've got stuff that you're tripping over all the time or walking around instead of taking a direct path, you got to walk around something all the time, that thing, whatever it is, that object needs to move. It could be a big rock, it could be just, you know, a set of stairs that we have laying over here. These things need to get out of your sight, and I mean off your job site, not just out of your eyesight. They have to be off your job site. They got to get moved. And so I always take a day here and there just to go in and clean everything up, just to make sure that the job site's safe, no one's tripping over anything. We have an electrical tube going here, which you've seen in the bits and pieces of video, that we've got strapped up on the wall right now. It's actually hanging off with a couple posts just to keep it off the ground for this one area, because it used to be strapped to the bottom of the deck. That kind of stuff like that it just has to be done. So yesterday when we were pulling these off, this is the ledger board that was on the back wall. When we were pulling these off, we were having pretty extreme hard time of knocking these out, and you know, we got a couple of them knocked out from the inside, but we had constriction on where we could actually get a sledgehammer in. We could only move it a couple inches, so the ledger board's not going to be able to be used for anything anyway. So what I did is we cut this with a circular saw down the sides of each one of these, and then we broke these off. Alright, and in doing so, this gave us a smaller piece of wood that we could crack this out of here, and then eventually be left with nothing but a carriage bolt, and we could work with that a little easier. We could tap it in a little bit, break it free from the inside, and then got a crowbar, big crowbar, and hooked them on the back side and pulled them out. This whole thing just kind of came off. That's why it's in this shape. But I just wanted to let you know that when you're doing demolition, sometimes you have to think outside the box and do things like this and reduce the amount of wood. This thought came from my wife. Alright, she's like, well, if we get rid of the wood, we'll have less wood to be coming through, and we'll just be coming through the 3/4 inch piece of wood that's on the outside of the house. So kudos to Susan for saving us a lot of work. One thing that's really good to do when you're cleaning up and you're doing this, taking this step, is to separate everything. So like all these carriage bolts we're going to put in one bucket. My neighbor Bryce already started putting these washers onto one of the carriage bolts. Here's a little clip to hold up the electrical. Won't put that in there. And we'll put these in there in a bucket. There's a lot of carriage bolts, okay? Now you don't want to make these buckets too heavy, because you still got to carry them, or you know, we have a tractor. Come on, Cheddar. So, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please click like, please subscribe to the channel. I hope you've learned something from how to do a demo, and I hope you see that it's not as bad as you think it is. There's just some techniques that you needed to learn, which you saw all in the video of how to do it. It does take time. I'm not going to lie to you, it does take time. It's going to take some effort. You'll feel a sense of accomplishment when you're done. I will tell you that. It's not just like, oh wow, look, the people outside got our deck demoed, and then you go on happy as a day. Alright, you're not going to feel the same sense of accomplishment if you let somebody else do the job. So, if you want to save the money on doing a demo, go out there and do it. You're always welcome back to the channel, always welcome back to the shop, and have a nice day.